This is the Mike LiPetri Show. Adam Haber, what's up, buddy?
Well, thank you, Mike. Good to see you.
I'm so happy to see you today. This is going to be a great dialogue. I mean, somebody like yourself, for the viewers and listeners, I think they're going to be ecstatic to hear from you with your background as was it 20 years Wall Street trader?
22.
22 years Wall Street trader, angel investor, entrepreneur. What else am I missing?
I made a small fortune in restaurants. The only problem is I started with a large fortune.
And somebody that's truly been immersed in all types of business, government, finance. I think that's why I really was so excited to chat with you, to learn, to really educate the listeners, but in a way that's specifically talking about issues such as inflation, the Federal Reserve. I want to talk about your stock trading days, your angel investing, commodity trading. Commodity trading days as angel investments, and then what you have going on now, like what's in the world of Adam Haber. And I think it's just great for those listening who are just interested in the topics of where we are at, because let's start off with the number one issue, right? That you heard it last election, number one issue, more than I got here from NPR, PBS NewsHour Marist poll. More than 1 in 3 voters cited inflation as their most pressing priority. And I love this stat. You're going to love this. Adjusted for inflation since COVID, we have spent more than the Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War I, World War II, Louisiana Purchase, the Transcontinental Railroad, Interstate Highway System, and the moon landing combined.
Oh, the moon landing was a kicker, huh?
The moon landing. That's what got it over the edge, right?
Well, that's a Long Island thing. We built the space...
right here.
The space lunar module right here.
Exactly. So I just found that fascinating. We heard that amount of money that's being spent, but so many people I don't think realize the grave concerns that surround when we pump money out there. What does inflation even mean? And I wanted to talk to you about that, to hear your thoughts. I'm like, where do we even start with this? What does inflation even mean for the viewers? The Federal Reserve, what is that?
So inflation basically is if I spend $1 today and buy a car, okay, buy a $30,000 car, and there's 10% inflation, my purchasing power goes down by roughly 10%. So now I have 90 cents to buy that same car. I have to pay another 10% more. That car's now, the $30,000 car is now $33,000. So if you don't get a raise, if you get a 5% raise, in the meantime, you're losing 5% on your real purchasing power. So inflation is the ability for a consumer to purchase a basket of goods for a certain price in a set point in time, and over the next year, 6 months, 2 years, how much has that changed? And there's a variety of goods in that basket, anything from energy to durable goods, and you name it. But we've had the most inflation in the last year. It's close to 9% than we've had, I'm going to say, since I was in high school.
And that was like, what, 60, 70 years ago?
Just kidding. It was basically radio was just invented.
But so now where do we go from here? So what can be, like, now the Federal Reserve is charged with that duty in the sense of regulating our economy. It dates back to 1913 of when it was first created. So now what role did they play exactly in this, in managing the inflation?
So how do we get here, first of all? So for a long time, you can get 0% in your bank account. You could borrow money at 3% and buy a house. Money was really, really cheap, and they kept it that way to help the economy grow. Money's cheap. People buy things on credit. They buy homes. They expand their businesses. And then what the Federal Reserve does, if things get a little crazy and they want people to stop spending so much money because the price of goods are going up, they raise the Fed funds rate, which is now 4.75%. Up from literally 0% about a year and 3 months ago. So now it costs you close to 5%, which is the historical average, for the banks to lend money to each other. The Fed funds rate is what big banks charge each other so they can meet with the capital requirements that the federal government decides. And then that's filtered into everything from auto loans to credit cards to mortgages. So everything goes up. So your 3% mortgage that you got 2 years ago is now 6.5%. So to think of it very, very simply, if you bought a $100,000 house and you're paying $3,000 in interest a year on an interest-only loan, that loan is now $6,500, or
right.
Another, we'll call it $300 a month.
Yeah,
it's a lot of money for a lot of people.
Yeah, it adds up, and that's what so many people are getting frustrated at, because we're looking at elected officials, the government entirely, but ultimately it all points down to this Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve, which so many people hear it, the Fed, they know Jerome Powell, J. Powell. And it's and people are looking like, who are these people? Why are they the ones charged? These are unelected people, and yet they're the ones charged with making these decisions. Is that right?
They're appointed. They're part of a board. There's, I believe, 12 Federal Reserve districts in the country. But that being said, the inflation didn't happen because of them. Their job is to keep the economy on an even keel. They want to keep 2% inflation overall. It gets too hot, they raise rates. Gets too low, they lower rates. During COVID, the government literally gave everybody and their mother and their mother's mother and their cousins money.
Yeah.
Free money, PPP loans, ERTC loans, checks straight to you. So everybody's got extra cash. They spend it. People buy stuff. The resources are finite. They bid those prices up, and then the Fed comes and tries to cool it down by raising rates.
Right.
And it's a problem because it's very hard to put the brakes on. Think of it as a big steamship in the middle of the ocean, Titanic. You don't have brakes like in a car. It slows down before it turns.
Right. And is that what we call quantitative easing? When we have the high interest rates, the long-term interest rates, and then short-term interest rates, and then to change that is based on quantitative easing, correct?
The Fed looks at basically how they're going to set the amount of interest that a bank will charge another bank.
Yeah. And
just to put it into perspective, at the worst possible scenario that they've had in modern history, right around 1980, when Carter, who was the there was a gas crisis and there was issues and people were bidding up the price of gas and other resources. That was in the mid 70s, but that filtered through. The Fed funds rate was over 20%.
Wow.
So just to make that easy for people to envision what it is, if you have $1 today and don't spend it, it's worth 80 cents a year from now. And beyond that, we have this national debt of $31.5 trillion and counting. If you have 20% interest on that debt, that's over $6 trillion. The U.S. government takes in only $5 trillion in revenue roughly a year. So you're basically going to have all your money spent on debt service, and it's game over.
Right. And then what does that mean for my children, my children's children, and beyond that?
Oh, they're fucked.
Yeah.
I hope this is not a G-rated show. But look at it this way. Let's put it in very nominal numbers. We take in about $4.9 trillion a year. Last year, the government spent $6.2 trillion. Let's make believe you're an average Long Islander. You're making $49,000 a year, and you're spending $62,000 a year.
Yeah.
You do that for 10 years. It's your credit card interest rate goes up. You can't pay your mortgage. You go into default. You can't live. So they say that the government can't default because they can print money, but then that money gets cheaper and cheaper, and they keep pushing interest rates higher. It's not a pretty scenario. It's not.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to. I think that's why it's so important to recognize. And there was something I read too about something that went unnoticed was that the Federal Reserve is underwater in the sense that it lost $800 billion due to rising interest rates in unrealized losses. Now that's something that I was concerned of, just because I get it's unrealized, meaning that it actually, how would we be able to break that down for the $800 billion unrealized
It's so
losses?
much money, it's hard to even fathom.
Yeah.
But when you buy a bond, let's say you buy a bond at 3%, and then interest rates go to 6%. Bond values go down as interest rates go up. So your 3% bond is at a loss. If you hold it to maturity, you won't realize that loss. But if you sell that debt before maturity, you're going to bake in a loss. So the government's been basically borrowing all this money in long-term debt at very cheap rates. And as interest rates go up, they owe that money back, and it's more expensive. So there's your loss.
Right. Now imagine someone who has a 401k, they'd be like, their hearts would just be...
Well, it's a 301k now.
Yeah. Precisely. That's the point, is that how much it drops. Everyone looks at me. I know people that look through the markets all the time, especially the 401k. I try to tell them not to do that because it's so erratic. But in the sense of if that occurred for them, their hearts would drop. And that's why I look at it like people should be associating what happens with government spending and funds as if it was their own pockets, because it is. It is our money that's being spent unwisely. So how do we change? Where do we go from here?
Well, there's two choices. There's several choices. There's three choices. One's default, which just can't happen because that's how Rome fell. That's how Argentina, which was once one of the strongest countries in the world, is now a debtor nation and full of poverty. If the U.S. credit loses its power and luster and the dollar loses its power and luster in the world, it's a real big problem. So what do we do as a country if you're king for a day, even though we live in a republic with a democracy? You can either decrease your expenses, meaning stop spending so much money. Good luck being the elected official who tries to cut Social Security or the budget for the War Department or tries to cut any one of the things that Medicare, they're very politically unpopular. So you can't really cut. You either have to cut or raise revenue. So the last time the budget was close to being balanced is the end of Clinton's term. He just got lucky during a bubble where the stock market was going up and there was a lot of taxes being paid. But for us to collect more revenue, we've got to stop people from cheating on taxes. 1 out of every $6 goes uncollected. It's an extraordinary amount of money. It's close to $800 billion. It's a weird number that you brought up.
Oh, that is interesting.
So how do you do that? Well, you need to beef up the IRS. Well, Biden wanted to do that, and people flipped out. We don't want to be, we don't want them coming after us, big brother. But the bottom line is if you don't go after the people who are cheating, they're going to cheat more, and you don't collect what you owed, there's money on the table. There's a few numbers out there. On the very low end, $500 billion goes uncollected from tax cheats. The very high end, $1 trillion. That will go a very long way, making sure if you're a W-2 worker, you're a cop, a fireman, you can't cheat in your taxes. Here's what I made. You submit it. So the average working person gets screwed, and there's a reason why people hate rich people is because they play the system. They cheat. I'm not saying all of them or most of them do, but a lot of them do play games to get away with not paying taxes, and that's part of the issue.
But isn't that the tax loopholes in the Internal Revenue Code? There's
a lot of loopholes, but you follow the law, and that's not included in that $1 trillion, $800 billion.
Okay.
I mean, carried interest is one thing. If you own a hedge fund and you get the long-term capital gains rate as if you'd invested, it's a silly loophole that because politicians get money from rich people, they don't want to change it. And this is a nonpartisan discussion. But there are loopholes you can close, but good luck being the elected official trying to do it.
Right, because of that pushback from the donor base.
The donor, and if you try and cut something, then the average person you're supposed to protect gets hurt.
Okay, and I think that's what many people when they saw that they thought, they think that all those agents are going after the average person. I mean, that's the big problem with it is that the perception is that you're getting all these people go after us when it's really penny wise, pound foolish. Like you're ignoring where the real changes are or the losses of taxes are. What
government promises and what government does, and again, this is a nonpartisan issue, are different things. So Biden said he wouldn't go after anybody at a greater rate than he is under $400,000.
Okay.
And what's really needed at the IRS is 11% of phone calls get answered. So if you have a question, they just need to modernize their computer systems from the 1980s.
I think we need that for government entirely.
Yeah.
Right?
When I worked at the town of Hempstead, they still had typewriters.
Yeah, it's
for
for government. I look at that. Obviously, that's a whole context and sense of how big do you want the federal government to get versus states government, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess that gives at least a big understanding for how our federal system works, which again, so many people are just unfamiliar with because you're worried right now with whether or not you could buy eggs. Right? You had baby formula issues. You had a cost of just your mortgage, like you just said, whether or not you could buy a home. So it makes it so difficult, which I'm glad that you're coming on to kind of talk about this in a way that's easily digestible for people, even with your background too, that helps understand like what are we missing in a sense of so fully understand.
Look, if I'm an average Jane or Joe and I work my tail off and I want to come home, I want to go to dinner Friday night, I want to take my kids to the movies, I want to go to a Little League game, watch my kids play sports or whatever, basketball, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I want to put a few dollars away for retirement. I want to watch things on Netflix. I don't want to hear about politicians sniping back at each other or problems or corruption. I just want to live my life as easily as I possibly can. And it's becoming with social media, just the anger and the misinformation. It's frustrating for everybody's turned off. Everybody. And it's hard.
Well, I blame the algorithms for that. You ever seen, this is a fantastic show.
I know you're going to talk about
Social Dilemma.
Yes.
Amazing. On Netflix,
Yep.
people should watch that. It talks all about how the algorithm just pushes more and more political divide and partisanship because all you hear is echo chambers as opposed to hearing differing interests, which is amazing to me. It's all about the money. It's all about the money with those organizations,
Everything's
companies.
about money. The media's about money. Social media's about money. I mean, we're a capitalistic society. There needs to be some curbs on it and some checks and balances, but I believe in capitalism. I'm a capitalist.
Well, isn't that the whole point? Exactly. And that, I guess that's perfect for a nice segue into your investments because it's all about competition, right? That's how you create the best for the people by having the most diverse amount of companies, businesses, different industries that can provide the best services at the best price for the people. I mean, capitalism creates arm's length deals that ultimately lifts all people, in my opinion. So I wanted to kind of talk about some of your angel investments that were really highlights for you and even yourself as an entrepreneur, what you're currently working on now in today's day and age. I was wondering if you can kind of highlight with your experience and your history about some of your investments that you've done that you really seen what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, why. I mean, I think people would be really interested in that.
Well, if you're an investor in risky startups, if you bat 200, you're not a Major League Baseball player. If you bat 200, meaning 2 out of 10 of your deals are successful, you're an all-star.
Really?
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic. I like to say I've got my master's and doctorate in losing money. But I am a little different than most people. I'm only most comfortable doing extremely risky things. I was a commodity derivatives trader for over 20 years on Wall Street, yelling and screaming in the pits like in the movie Trading Places.
Yeah.
I like trading the most illiquid, esoteric commodities. I mean, I actually did trade frozen concentrated orange juice. I traded, like they had in Trading Places, I traded cotton, heating oil, gasoline, crude oil, gold, silver, copper. I was members of all the exchanges. It was extremely, it was like a sport. It was a lot of fun. And while I was there, I'm always inquisitive how things work, and I ended up becoming a funnel for people who had ideas. And hey, look at this, and I ended up seeing different businesses and investing in a lot of them. I had a bunch of buddies in high school I'm still very close with. We share texting all day long. It's like we're 15 years old. Well, when we were 15 years old, we used to hop in the car and go to Yonkers, go down to Atlantic City on a school night. My mother would say, hey, where you going? There was no social media or iPhone to see where I was. We held casino nights in our homes, and the whole high school would come and play blackjack and poker and stuff like that. Yeah. It was great. I'd probably go to jail if it was 2015 if I was in high school, but back then it was like you were a hustler. Right? So I like the idea of risk, and I was buying and selling options in high school and losing my money all the time. And I went
options will do that too.
I went to a broker. I go, who's making this money? He goes, the guy's down there. I go, where? I didn't know what you're talking about. So I went to the Commodities Exchange, which is the World Trade Center, which is gone. And if you remember the movie Trading Places, they had the Beaks had an office. Those were the bad guys, which was the viewing station for visitors. And I saw all these people pushing, yelling, and screaming and fighting. And I pressed my nose against the glass. And I'm like, I gotta get down there. And I knocked on doors for weeks and months until I got an entry-level job making $18,000 a year, and that's how I got started.
And then just from there, what you had this one story. I got it. I want people to hear that because I think it's just awesome. Was it coffee? When you had that week stint.
So what I learned, and this is the best advice, unsolicited advice I can give anybody, is never put yourself in a position to lose all your money on a really bad situation that has a very small chance of happening. Like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So now, when I do these crazy things, I never put more than 3 to 5% in any one investment, and neither should anybody, any one stock, any one business, because you're at the mercy of the market if it happens. So this is before computers. Coffee was trading $1, literally, and there were people who were paying $1.50 for options that were going to not be worth anything in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, what does that mean? So
it basically means right now, let's say the stock market's at 30,000. The price would have to go to 45,000 in 2 weeks, which has never happened even close in the history of mankind. So I'm like, this ain't going to happen. So I sold some, went home. I got a phone call, and that's when I learned the French words force majeure, which I vomited. And it means basically all bets are off, contracts are null and void, and the price of coffee opened up at $2. It went from $1 to $2. So I was bankrupt on paper. And I never saw the full movie The Matrix, but I was in The Matrix. And I called my wife and I said, I think we lost our house. I love you. Trust me. and I was in Massachusetts, and I drove way too fast to get home. And for the next week, I basically saved, by the skin of my teeth, was able to stay solvent. But there, by the grace of God, depending on what could have happened, I could have lost everything and more. And then I learned from that and never put myself in that position again.
Did you have any advice or anything? There's someone there to help you or guide you?
Nope. Options were very new still back then, right. And there were no computers. You didn't know what happened. I couldn't even figure out how bad the frost was, because the frost caused the coffee to die, and then the coffee dies, there's less supply, and the price goes up. So I remember going through, operator, can you give me the Hilton in Sao Paulo? So she connects me through, and I said, excuse me. I took French in high school, not Spanish. Is it cold? And the guy's like, mucho frío. And that was my weather report. I'm like, oh, my God. And I ended up, thank God I was able to survive that week. And then from the rest on, I wasn't, that risky.
It's amazing. It shows you how to manage risk, really.
Yeah.
And it's so, because it's people you hear, they don't put all your eggs in one basket, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But what eventually happens is you see good stuff, people sell you on it, that you think it's a lock, and then all of a sudden you find yourself saying, I'll put more money. Before you know it, you put in 20%, then you put in 40 more percent, then you put, before you know it, the final 40% in, and you find you're all in.
Everybody wants the dollar in a dream to make, everybody, first investor in Facebook, first investor in, Uber.
Right.
I was actually one of the first investors. I had an opportunity to be one of the first investors in Peloton. Oh. I said, this will never work. I would have made about 160 to 1 on my investment. Oh. I was actually an early investor in Facebook, and if you don't remember, the price went down. I puked all of my stock and lost money, and then it went up tremendously. Oh. It's so hard to hit a home run.
Right.
So the best thing you could do is be a singles hitter every day. Buy real estate, get rents, have the mortgage stay the same, have your rents go up, refinance. That's why you see so many old rich guys in real estate. Otherwise, it's extremely hard. One day at a time.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And now, in terms of yourself, so are you still doing any angel investment? Are you working on anything? You're on your own. Where are you up to at this moment?
So I do a lot of investing in real estate. I like startups. I'm in the grocery food tech space. I'm on a couple boards, but I saw a huge opportunity. I was head of economic development for the town of Hempstead for 2 crazy years, and I saw every politician always say, shop local, both sides of the aisle, but consumers shop local because they'll get it cheaper. My dad would drive 10 miles to save a nickel on gas, even if he wasted $1 on gas, which a lot of people did. Or they get it quicker. I'm home, I need it now, I got a gift. And then when I was a lot younger, I used to work downtown. My wife would say, go to the mall and get a birthday gift. Your daughter's got a party. And I'm like, I'm exhausted. I don't want to take an hour going to the mall. Why can't I push a button and have something come here?
Yeah.
So I had the idea for this business. Amazon basically crushes small businesses. They're hurting hard. The government bends over backwards to give them tax breaks, yet they still say shop local. Why isn't there a company that helps small businesses compete by providing logistics and tech support to get the goods and services from the local businesses within a certain region, same day, couple hours, so you can get there quicker? And I said, nobody's doing that. Literally, nobody's doing that. And I spent about 6 months going door to door, speaking to people in Nassau and Suffolk County. And I say, hey, we got a business here. And I put a team together. I got 2 great partners, Brian Berkery and Jared Jensen. Sales, consumer liaison, meet the businesses. Brian's marketing, JR's tech. And we raised some money. We're raising more money. We want to expand out of Long Island. We're into Westchester. We want to go up the coast to Boston and down to D.C. and create a similar experience where you'll go on a website, type in candy, shoes, anything that's not hot food, and you'll get from a 5 or 10 mile radius all the inventory from those stores pop up. You click and buy. It'll get there quicker from stores you know. And it's a great idea. It's working, but it's a lot of work because a small business owner is a small business owner for a reason. They don't take chances. They have an AOL. They don't have a website. Takes them 10 visits to convince them. And they're like, this is amazing. And it's one of the greatest feelings when you help somebody survive and thrive. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. And what's the name of this company?
It's called Trellus. The website is Trellus, BYTRELLUS. We work with about 330 businesses on Long Island. We do about 1,000 deliveries a week. We want to do 10 times that. We're expanding into Westchester and then hopefully up into Connecticut. And it's exciting. I mean, so many of the stores that you know are on the platform. Right now, it's a directory. You go there, the customer is the business. They handle the sale. They use us for delivery, but we're building tech where we'll have the same thing as Amazon. You'll type in candy, clothes, shoes, hardware, sporting goods, and then all the inventory from those businesses in a geo-fenced area of 5 or 10 miles will come up. Click and buy it. Driver gets alerted. Boom, boom, you get it.
Yeah, so that's good. So it's meant to rival Amazon in the sense that instead of you going on there purchasing products, why not go to your local small business?
Because you get it quicker.
Because you get it quicker, and you're helping the small businesses rather than helping China per se.
The value add is time. When your local business owner is not going to be able to undersell Amazon, but you know the quality. You know if you need to return it, you can go right back to the store. You don't have to hassle. It's a great model. It's just a lot of work convincing small business owners. Yeah,
and I think that's fascinating because so many people, I mean, they obviously go to Amazon, just buying everything there. And as a result of that, it's going to have huge problems for our downtowns and for frankly, the island, too, as a whole. Because if you think about it, that tax base, people don't think about that in the sense that this is now going back to the financial side, is many of these small businesses, they have that tax base they provide for their localities, for the county, for the towns. If you lose those, you have nothing to make that up. Amazon's not making that up.
No, the money leaves the area when you shop on Amazon. But I'll give you I like to put things in very simple examples. I spend $1 at my local hardware, toy store, dry cleaner. That dry cleaner then goes to the car store, the auto shop that's right there, who gets his car repaired. It goes to the stationery store, buys a sandwich. That money pings around. That tax revenue stays local. There's a multiplier effect. So for every dollar you spend, $1.50 is generated, and then you do the math on what the taxes are for the sales tax for the state and the county and the towns. If I shop on Amazon, they do collect sales tax one time, but that money goes to corporate headquarters. It doesn't ping around. Your money gets sucked out, and the small business owner who's shopping here doesn't support small businesses. And then what happens when these businesses go out? No one wants to live near empty storefronts. Look at Baldwin.
Right.
Your home values go down. And then it's harder to collect money on real estate taxes, and it's a snowballing effect. So most people don't look about what happens from A to Z. They just look at from A to B. But if you don't shop local, if you don't support small businesses, it's going to hurt your home value. It's going to hurt your tax base. It's going to affect the amount of taxes you pay. Mm-hmm. It's a win-win-win. It's one of the greatest things I've ever been involved in is Trellus. Yeah,
it must be so fulfilling. I mean, it affects your lifestyle too for the neighborhoods, right? I mean, in terms of just what's surrounding you. You want a burgeoning, vibrant community that you live in. Everybody wants to be excited where you can go here, go there, stop by there for these shops. I mean, local shops, whether it be shops or restaurants or anything, but you want it around you. That's where people, I mean, that's what I think makes Long Island so unique, frankly, is what we have available from North Shore, South Shore, Nassau to Suffolk. I mean, all that we have to offer specifically, and then even commuting into the city or to go to Connecticut or upstate. I mean, we're in a rare form that allows us to, in my opinion, separate us from everybody else. And even what you're talking about with pricing, I don't think Long Islanders mind paying a higher price if it's going to be good quality and it's going to be there with the same expediency.
I'll give you an example.
Because I'd rather have my money here and I'll pay an extra whatever amount it is. I mean, you're not talking about several dollars or tens of dollars. I mean, it's nominal in the sense of scheme of things, and I'd rather have that go here than go to China.
So you're gonna. It's not even just China. 1-800-Flowers, for example.
Okay.
They take 30 to 40% of the sale from the business owner who has them as a fulfillment center, and that's their profit. If you buy directly from the florist, they keep 100%. So 1-800-Flowers is a great business model for 1-800-Flowers, but it hurts the small business owners just like Uber Eats and DoorDash does, where they take the 20, 30, 40% of the sale. So you can compete, and everybody's on it, and they all kill each other on pricing, and the margins get thinner and thinner and thinner. Our model is just a delivery service. We make our money on volume. We don't take a percentage of the sale. So that's one of the reasons why the business.
You take no percentage of the sale?
Nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I think Uber and DoorDash and all those guys, they take from those businesses. They rape those businesses in the sense of how much money.
It's as little as 15% for pet shops, which is a very low margin business, and as high as 30% or more. Same with Amazon. They take a chunk of it, and you can't compete if you're a restaurant if you don't do DoorDash because your neighbors are doing it, but then, you're working hard for somebody else.
Right.
We have a different model. We think when we have tens of thousands of businesses on there, and you want to be the first florist or chocolate shop or clothing store to show up in a certain region, like Google, you'll pay a quarter per click to be the first one if someone does a search, and we think we're going to make a ton of dough on advertising. We know we will.
Right.
So right now we're just in a race to fill up the party, help people. We have a great business just with delivery.
Yep.
But there's so many ways to make money and make it so it doesn't kill a small business owner.
So it's buytrellis.com?
You got it.
bytrellis.com. Why Trellus?
Because
Why that name?
Because I lost the coin flip for Long Island Delivers. Because we wanted to be a national company. Trellus is in a garden. It's a lattice that connects things, and we connect businesses. We're B2B. We have businesses that work together, like Nofo Doco is a chocolate shop on the North Fork, and Sail Away Coffee is a cold brew coffee. They do coffee and donut deliveries through us. They work together.
Oh,
so
that's
we're
awesome.
networking our businesses not only to do B2B, but to deliver through us, and everybody wins.
I love that. That is fantastic. I mean, that's the type of innovation that we need. And frankly, that's why I love capitalism, because it creates that entrepreneurship, that innovation to promote more and more and to push to help our local businesses and helping the consumers. I mean, that's a win-win. That's awesome, buddy. When did you start this?
2 years ago. This is America, man. Anything is possible.
I think so, buddy. And listen, this has been a real great discussion. I love just talking about these. These are dense issues that many people, they're curious about. They want somebody that's going to be able to talk to them in an unbiased fashion, in a way that's educating, but there's no agenda. And I think that's what's so valuable, and what I appreciate with talking to you, with your experiences and your history, where you'll highlight the wins, you'll highlight the losses. I mean, equally. I think that's what makes any winner great, is ultimately showing both sides, where it's not just only undefeated in a sense.
Oh, no, I've gotten my ass kicked in political elections and business investments, in fist fights in sixth grade. I don't win all the time, but I've had more winners than losers overall, and when you win, you just push the pedal to the metal and keep going.
Well, that's what it's all about, right? Maximize profits, minimize losses. So that's the way to be.
Did you make that
in terms of life? Yeah, right. In terms of in life, that's the way to be, and I think you've truly embodied that. And I definitely appreciate you coming on here, and you've been wonderful. So thanks so much for your time.
Don't forget the little people when you're national.
We're building. Thanks, buddy.